From New York, it's the Music News at Noon on the Music Industry City Broadcast Network. I'm Peter Schwing, and please join me in welcoming my co-host Eli Window and UK correspondent Angela Randall.
Hi, Peter. Hi, Angela. Hello, everybody.
Hello from the very sunny shores of the United Kingdom.
Right on. All right, today's news. You can now own your own distribution service. New York requires COVID vax for all indoor shows. Live Nation denies a COVID gag order in artist contracts. London does not want a giant glowing MSG dome. And more stream-ripping sites are under fire. As always, our daily Spotify update. Those stories coming up. But first, let's take a look at this day in music history with Eli Window. Eli.
Thanks, Peter. Let's look at this day in history. On August 4th, 2007, we lost U.S. singer-songwriter Lee Hazelwood, who died of cancer in his home near Las Vegas, age 78. Hazelwood wrote and produced many of Nancy Sinatra's most famous hits, including These Boots Were Made for Walkin'. And on August 4th, 2015, we lost influential country producer Billy Sherrill, who worked with artists like George Jones, Charlie Rich, and Tammy Wynette, and is known for pioneering the quote-unquote countrypolitan sound. He died after a short illness at the age of 78, in memory. Moving on, birthdays today. Born on this date, 1901, the one, the only, Louis Armstrong. Born on this date also, 1940, Larry Knechtel, an American keyboard player and bassist, best known as a member of the Wrecking Crew. On August 4th, 1947, born German electronic music composer and musician, Klaus Schulze, who was a member Tangerine Dream. Born on this date, 1960, Graham Massey, keyboards in 808 State. And born on this date, 1969, Max Cavalera, guitarist and singer from Brazilian heavy metal band Sepultura. Moving on to this day in music history, on August 4th, 1958, Billboard introduced the Hot 100 Singles Chart. Ricky Nelson was number one with Poor Little Fool. On this date, 1975, Led Zeppelin singer Robert Plant and his wife were both badly injured when the hire car he was driving spun off the road and crashed on the Greek island of Rhodes. Plant smashed both his ankle and his elbow and was not fully fit for the best part of 2 years. A forthcoming North American tour unfortunately had to be canceled as a result. And on August 4th, 2001, the News of the World reported that Mariah Carey had hired a private eye to spy on her ex-husband, record boss Tommy Mottola. Investigator Jack Palladino told the paper that Mariah believed her ex-husband was conducting a smear campaign against her. Crazy day for Mariah Carey today in music history. But that's it for us in Today in Music History. Over to you, Peter, for our headlines.
All right, on. Thanks for that, Eli. Hey, the News of the World, and Angela, is that still a thing? Is that still a red top paper over there in the UK?
No, sir. After the scandal of the phone hacking, which I'm sure everyone will Google after we do the music news, it was definitely entertainment news for sure. I think Hugh Grant is their least biggest fan. After that scandal, they sort of disbanded and formed other papers and went other ways. But yeah, not a big thing anymore, thankfully.
I remember there was a picture years ago. It was during the riots, and it was at 2010, 2011. And I referenced it later. I was like, yeah, I remember seeing this picture of David Cameron with a gun, with like an M16. And they were like, David Cameron goes out and like he's really shutting down the riots. And I sent it to somebody. They're like, no, that was from News of the World. And I had no idea. So good thing they got shut down. All right. With that, let's try that again. Let's set the stage. We bring you summaries and commentary on the latest headlines. If you'd like to offer your thoughts on one of today's topics, request to join the stage during the roundtable segment. I'd also like to say hi to everyone viewing the show on our video live stream on Facebook, Twitch, YouTube, and you can check it out directly from the website. To stay up to date on this and all other programming, make sure to sign up for free at musicindustrycity.com for more news and conversations. Now let's get to it. All right, and this first piece is from musicbusinessworldwide.com. To access all the articles mentioned in today's show and throughout the week, visit musicindustrycity.com and view today's Music News at Noon post. All right, the article is titled Get Ready for an Explosion in Music Distributors as Distro Direct Launches White Label B2B Platform. I was talking about this a couple months ago about these different type of white labels, and we look at it from this creator economy and how everybody will eventually be able to like cut out all of the middlemen and women and just be able to do everything housed into one blockchain NFT website with everything. This is really interesting. So that's why we're going to be talking about this one. So Distro Direct is a new white label B2B solution that allows any music business to add digital distribution to their existing product under their own brand and distributes to over 100 DSPs worldwide, including Spotify, Apple, Amazon, Deezer, TikTok, and more. And it's the brainchild of GyroStream, an Australian-based digital distribution company that debuted in 2018 and has already driven over 1 billion streams of its artists' music. Its features include collaborator split payments, Spotify and Apple Music analytic integrations, full reporting, and monthly statements. Following the preliminary launch earlier this year, over 150 music companies in 21 markets have established their own services using Distro Direct's B2B platform. Through their own admin panel, each Distro Direct distributor can define their own pricing, royalty rate, and website customization. And artists can also sign up for an account, access their dashboard, and control their own assets, uploads, and royalty withdrawals. Anybody have some thoughts on this? I'm excited about this. It makes me want to start going producing music just so I can have everything housed in my website. I mean, you're looking at this creator economy. You have the traditional industry, and by no means is the traditional industry, I'm referring to this as some old, outdated industry. I'm referring it to like, contracts and teams and organization and structures. But we look at what's happening over like many of these quote unquote content creators or Twitch streamers, Twitch musicians that came up the ranks through Twitch and building an audience and doing cover songs and writing their own music. And when they go to say, hey, something, I have a song coming out, and they have their community and they just release one song, it's 11,000 pre-saves, 20,000 streams. Now, for these creators to be able to not have to deal with all of these other platforms and having to deal with, contracts. This is what is exciting for them. And I really enjoy this fact that you'll be able to I can embed into my own website. Here's my website. I can have as a backend or this, whatever. I can have my own distribution channel. I can have my own distribution service. I can then work with other creators and have my own friends. Hey, you want to put this out? Let's put it out through my distribution channel. I think this is really cool.
I'm right with you, Peter. I think this is fantastic. Sorry to cut you off. I thought you were finished there.
Go for it.
I'm right with you. I feel like the opportunity, we all know distro is king, don't we? So we know that if you have the ability to make the product, with so many people producing in their home studios and local studios, to be able to put a product out and actually get it up without having to do any of the sort of hoop jumping and waiting game and all of that for current distributors. Obviously, it'll take a little bit of time for Distro Direct to get it to, to refine their services so that they can get more direct contact with some of these, because obviously playlist placements are a hot commodity. But man, if they're able to do that in a way that's streamlined and easy, it could be a real game changer. Yeah, I'm fully with you on this.
Right. And even other marketplaces, and this is what we're seeing across multiple sectors and industries, is, there's a company, NFT.cred, and that's with a K, and you can have your own marketplace. You can have your own NFT marketplace there. And that is really cool. Like, to be able to keep everything within your own brand. And it's not for everybody. Absolutely, this isn't for everybody. This is for the people that want to put in the extra grind, that are doing it themselves, that are out there. But you look at successful YouTubers, you look at successful Twitch streamers, you look at successful people that are in there doing the grind and building up their own team. And basically they become, they're all entrepreneurs. And being able to look at efficiency in ways that they can, what you can hear, what I love about this is, you can define your own pricing, royalty rate, website customization, and Eli will really like this one, split payments. You can have your split you can put your split letter together, and you can have collaborator split payments right from the service. So I'm going to be paying attention to this one a lot more. All right, let's shift over to some. We're going to be talking a little COVID here, not too much, but few updates, and this is from IQ Mag. New York to require COVID-19 vax for all indoor shows. And the strict new requirements will be extended to other indoor activities, including dining at a restaurant and working out in the gym, throughout August and September as the city seeks to stop the spread of the highly contagious Delta variant of the coronavirus. And this, according to the Associated Press, New York is the first major city to impose such restrictions, though some venues already have similar requirements. Madison Square Garden, for example, has required all fans to be fully vaccinated for its non-socially distanced events since the Foo Fighters' huge show in June. And according to the AP, the policy will come into effect on August 16th, but inspectors and enforcement won't begin until September 13th when the city's schools reopen. And according to the statistics, about 66% of adults in New York are fully vaccinated, according to the data. This is, if you're following any of the socials and the Twitter verse, this is really divided. This is heating up that people are saying we're going back, saying this is it. We're going, it's government overreach and we're going back into another lockdown. And others are like, thank you for doing this and for people to understand that if you're not wearing a mask, this isn't about you. This is about everybody else. And so it's pretty interesting how a lot of it comes out of this frustration of when are we getting out of this, and it's understandable, but we get out of this by not spreading it. That's how we get out of this. Anybody have some thoughts on this?
I actually have a thought on this, and I just wanted to say that I feel that if any of us collectively or individually, if any of us had any sort of power to make this all stop by sheer force of will, we would have by now, before now. And so just from my standpoint, it definitely feels like trying to fight this with force of will or the power of thoughts and prayers or feelings or anything kind of intangible. It seems almost scary. We wouldn't stand on the beach and shout "go away" at a incoming tidal wave. And so I just want to say that, definitely there are so many feelings about this. I know this is a supercharged topic, but I just want to ask everybody who's looking at this topic and however you feel about it, please do remember that if any of us had the power to make this situation change and make this pandemic stop, make life return to normal, if any of us had the power to do this individually or collectively, we would have done it by now. Perhaps it's time to try something besides willpower. I don't know, but those are my thoughts.
Yeah, and I also, I want to give it like a shout out. I know he hasn't been here in a while, but Jim Faith who did the Great South Bay Music Festival down at Shorefront Park in Patchogue on Long Island. He was going back and forth for a long time, like, can he canceling? He finally canceled it, and then when things started opening back up, he was going to put on a multi-day smaller event. So that's what his goal was. And he was putting it all in place. He's like, we can do this as a smaller event and everything. And then we start again, this Delta variant coming through. And, it's sad to say, I saw the news that come out and he canceled that one because he's like, if one person gets sick because of this festival, it's like, that's on me. And that's not something that, I just don't want to deal with that. That's not something that this is about. So, these are the tough decisions, but, they have to happen. So, supporting him, for a big decision that he had to make. And, we're going to start hearing about Lollapalooza results and everything in the next week or so. So let's see what happened there. All right, going over to Live Nation. Let's talk about Live Nation for a moment. This is going to be a quick one because I was on Pitchfork, and also Digital Music News has this one. But Live Nation denies claim that artist contracts contain COVID-19 gag order. And the musician Courtney J shared a screenshot on Sunday of a message from an anonymous musician source who claimed that due to a contract signed with Live Nation, they were unable to publicly disclose that they'd tested positive for COVID-19. And then just after that, Live Nation shared a tweet denying that any such clause exists in its contracts. In addition, a Reddit user who was kicked off a tour when they tested positive, also commented that Live Nation has a clause that states artists can't mention COVID or the pandemic as the reason for canceling a show. Said in context. If you see a band canceling their shows without explanation, assume the reason is they had a positive test result in their camp. All right, so the Live Nation put out response, quote, there is absolutely no COVID gag order in our contracts. We care about our employees, crews, bands, and artists, and will continue to meet requirements of local health officials as we put on events. So is this something that just gets shared around? Is this another game of telephone via social media that people are just spreading information? But Live Nation says, nope, not there. Some people are saying, yeah. All right, we're going to go over to Variety. We're going to talk about Offspring. And the Offspring drummer said he's been booted from the band for not getting vaccinated. Told you we're going to talk a little about COVID. We're going to get through this really quick and move on to some other things. Pete Parada, the drummer for Offspring, posted on his social media Tuesday that he's been ousted from the group because he won't agree to get the COVID vaccine. Beyond being replaced for an upcoming tour, Parada says he's been told not to show up at the studio either, even though he claims to have a legitimate medical reason for not getting the jab. It's not entirely clear from the post whether he has been fired from the group permanently or just put on hiatus. He goes on to say, quote, since I am unable to comply with what is increasingly becoming an industry mandate, it has recently been decided that I am unsafe to be around in the studio and on tour. I mention this because you won't be seeing me at these upcoming shows. I also want to share my story so that anyone else experiencing the agony and isolation of getting left behind right now knows they're not entirely alone. He also says in his post that he previously had a case of COVID and thus believes he has the antibodies, but in any case, he contends his lifelong history with the Guillain-Barré syndrome puts him at greater risk for side effects from a vaccination, before adding that he is supportive of anyone who resists getting the vaccine for any number of reasons, from fear of side effects to distrust of the medical and governmental establishment. And to conclude, he also added that he is not posting out of anger to his bandmates' policy, or he does write some chagrin about a climate of coercion surrounding the vaccine. And he says, I have no negative feelings towards my band. They're doing what they believe is best for them, while I am doing the same. Wishing the entire Offspring family all the best as they get back at it. I'm heartbroken not to be seeing my road community. I will miss connecting with the fans over more than I can express in words. So we talked about the New York ruling that's contentious. Well, here's another one about getting vaccine shots, and this is you're seeing both sides. I mean, we are very polarized on these type of decisions for people, and it comes into safety. So this is something important to look at all the different sides and being able to support.
You got to keep them separated.
Yep.
Sorry, I couldn't resist.
Hey, Peter, may I?
Absolutely,
Because
Chris. How you doing?
that little segment only spoke to the drummer's point of view and did not mention where the band also felt that they didn't possibly want to pass something to him and that it's for his own safety. So we've got to be very careful with these narratives. If we're going to show both sides of it, then it's kind of like the people that believe, well, if the vaccine works, why do you wear a mask? Well, it's for you, idiot, because you didn't want to get the vaccine. So, we need to show both sides, from the band also trying to protect their drummer.
Right, and that's if that would be great. I was just pulling from the Variety, so yeah, I agree with you. This is from his perspective from this entire article, so waiting to hear from their response as well.
Yeah, I think actually we're going to see a bit more of this, and I don't like I think it's a bit unfair for Variety to use the term "has been booted." I don't know if that's just clickbait or whatever, but I agree with Chris in the sense
all
that
of our news.
Yeah,
I'm sorry to interrupt, but all the news sources right now are like every trailer is like a summer blockbuster movie. That's how much bullshit all news outlets have become. So they clearly are just more and more incendiary, just doing all they can to have you read their story. They don't care what the language is anymore because it's been proven that every news organization can get away with this shit. So.
Yeah, for sure. I was just going to say that it's important for us to remember too that, like you say, there's two sides to every story. But I think it's important also to highlight that that we have to use our common sense, and that, just like Chris said, it may just be that the rest of the band doesn't want to put their drummer at risk. And when we're reading these things, when we see things like, festival canceled on the back of one irresponsible or whatever it is, that we're remembering that some people are just trying to do the right thing, and these are uncharted waters. So yeah.
Yeah, a band could instantly, if one of the band members were to test positive, that's bad press for that band. If that band member were unfortunately to be hospitalized because of a positive situation, that's bad press for that band. You know what I mean? That nobody's going to want to do that. So there's multiple standpoints besides just protecting the health. It's protecting the brand and across the board. And it's kind of like talking about Lollapalooza. We're not really going to know the real numbers because tens upon tens of thousands are from very closely neighboring states. So it won't just be Chicago numbers. It'll be mixed among three close states that those numbers may rise, and they may not look like a big jump to be associated with such an event.
And this is great. This is why we talk about this. This is why we say, look, this is what's being discussed in the news. It's what we're talking about. So, Chris, thank you so much. I mean, Chris, you're looking at different live events going on right now, and you are so heavily involved in that sector. I mean, we're talking about, what happened at Lollapalooza. You look at these shots, and people were freaking out, and they were still saying that there were tickets available, that people, the reason tickets were available because people were outraged. And again, using those salacious headlines and those terms, so that people were outraged by Lollapalooza going on, or they're scared. And yeah, I mean, everybody has to be cautious, but these types of large scale events, and especially throughout different areas of the world, which you can't relate country to country, but we are seeing things of a pickup in certain areas. And what are you going to see? We're going to wait and see about what the results of Lollapalooza.
Well, again, you're not going to see the results because, again, those people are dispersed over many states. So it's not like there was any tracking or anything. So you're not going to see any massive, increase of just Chicago. And again, tens upon tens of thousands weren't from Chicago that traveled there. As far as the shows go, I mean, we're already seeing Garth Brooks questioning whether he's going to continue. There's a lot of shows or small runs. I won't call them tours because there aren't tours happening per se. There's these runs happening with these pocket shows. Nothing's back on the level that everybody likes to keep saying, oh, live shows are back. No, they're not. There's a few that are able to do their thing, but on the whole, no, it's not. But when you take things like this, I'm not in any way here. I'm not going to slander or anything else the people of Lollapalooza. I watched it on TV personally, but I've got a system that makes that worthwhile. And, I thought Post Malone had an amazing set. I thought Limp Bizkit Limp Bizkit did their thing and did it well. But again, when you look at it, somebody's going to have to do this. And at some point, the onus has to be on the ticket holder as well. Now, as much as you can try and mitigate everything you want of mandating these quote unquote vaccine passports that aren't vetted through any medical source, it requires you to just upload your information. So it's kind of an honorary system, which is, to me, somebody just trying to monetize it personally. But you also can't control 100,000 people with masks. And it's ludicrous to even have the conversation of trying to do so. So that's not in. So, but we also, certain levels of people, this is where I also say you can't point the finger at people going to do things. You don't know if they're about to lose their house, their car, they've got children to feed. You just hope they're doing it as safe as possible, and you try and help them to do it as safe as possible. On a big festival like this, though, they kind of got caught. You know what I mean? It was booked, it was going to go, it was built, it had to go. Kind of at the cusp of this Delta variant, really kind of, tried to do their mandates. There's arguments that they didn't follow the mandates as good as what they said they would or whatever else, but it's easy to armchair quarterback some shit from 3,000 miles away instead of being on the ground trying to run a festival. Most people have no idea what the job actually entails. So I think Lollapalooza got caught in the middle there. Because people, and I'll bet everybody listening right now has gone to restaurants, right? You've gone back out. You've started doing things. You've now maybe started questioning that as the Delta number started to rise, but everybody else was too. So they kind of got caught. Could they have? Should they have? You can sit back and do that shit all you want. But we're not really going to see it. What's going to happen out of that? Again, no tracing, no anything else. The question is what's going to happen in the future with this Delta variant. How many more shows are going to back out?
We're looking at. I mentioned different countries, and there's was it Netherlands? I think it was. There was a small gathering, and 1,000 people contracted COVID. And it was a small gathering. I think it was like it was 2,000, like 4,000 people or something like that. I can't remember exactly, but maybe 10,000. But like it was just spread like wildfire. So, and again, talk about restaurants and indoor. And circulation, it's I feel better being outside, but when you're still trapped around people and you're all breathing in that same air when you're with thousands and thousands of people. And one thing I want to close up this segment because we're going to talk a little bit more about festivals in a second, but in Norway. But Chris, one thing that you said is like, people, no matter what you hear about, people like, oh, live is open. And where do people hear that? It's from Mike Rapino and the headlines that cover him saying, Mike Rapino says it's open. Everything's open. So the salacious headlines again. So thank you for...
I have yet to hear that directly from Rapino. I mean, Rapino's pushing his shows. He's doing his job. I mean, this man is not an idiot. He is, obviously one of the top in the, if not, some people would hold him as, in the live industry. But, again, a lot of what's held to him as the headline, I have yet to see him actually speak or in quotes or put to him directly. I know a lot of people would love to throw a lot of shade his way, but, I also wouldn't want to be in that position either.
Well, he says, when there's like fully open, it's like these are the type of things. And, he said, there were some headlines, and maybe it was also the news, the outlets, just coming up with the more of the salacious headline of what he actually said again. And these are the type of things. But, he's saying that, things are looking forward to being open, or what he's talking about there. And that's, again, some of, his social media. That's, you can even look on his socials and see what he's talking about there. So, thanks again for that, for Chris. We're going to move over to Norway, and this one is from IQ Mag, and this is title is Norway Makes It Impossible for Festivals to Go Ahead. And again, if you want to check out any of these articles and the headlines that we are talking about, you can go to musicindustrycity.com and you'll see the music news at noon. Just click on today's date. That's the post right there. It's the most recent one. And you can go and dig in deeper to these articles yourself. So with that, Norway has postponed the final step in reopening of its economy for a second time due to the continued spread of the Delta variant. In April, the government launched a 4-step plan to gradually remove most pandemic restrictions and had completed the first 3 of those steps by mid-June. Initially, the government's plan was to restrict festivals to 2,000 attendees until June, 5,000 until August, and 10,000 thereafter. And this prompted cancellations of numerous festivals. Events with designated seating can take place with a maximum of 3,000 indoors, 7,000 outdoors, and the events must be divided into 500 capacity, and the venue's capacity cannot exceed 50%. And one of the last major Norwegian festivals left, the Fortress Festival in Trondheim, was canceled yesterday as organizers said the postponement of the final step had made it impossible to go ahead. A new assessment will be made in mid-August, but Prime Minister Erna Solberg predicts Norway will fully reopen this autumn, providing more residents are vaccinated. I'm going to say about 80% of adults in Norway have received the first dose of the COVID-19 vaccine, and 41% of adults are fully vaccinated. All right, with that being said, let's check in with Eli.
All right, let's check in with me. And while Peter is checking in with me, don't forget to check in with your friends. Your friends can join the discussion the same way that you can. Make sure that you invite them, and then you can request to come to the stage, or by chiming in the chat if you're watching us in the live stream. Feel free to let us know your thoughts. You can also watch our video live stream right from our website and access other content and articles, including our weekday 3-minute music news podcast. This is a podcast that keeps you up to date on items that might not be covered right here in the Music News at Noon. News like new releases, sometimes tours, our musical chairs, maybe business or tech news. This is all in 3 minutes or less. You can plug in and check out our podcast in less time than it takes for you to find your car keys. We'd like to thank you again so much for tuning in for today's Music News at Noon, each and every Monday through Thursday at 12 p.m. Eastern, coming to you from New York City. And with that, we want to continue with our headlines for today. East London MP calls for MSG Sphere plans to be rejected. With more on this headline, we go to our UK correspondent, Angela Randall. Angela?
Thanks, Eli. Labour MP Lynn Brown has called on the London Legacy Development Corporation to reject the Madison Square Garden company's plans to build a new video screen covered venue in East London. Plans to build an MSG Sphere alongside East London's Olympic Park were announced in 2018. A main controversial point is the LED skin that would cover the entire giant spherical exterior of the building. This would display videos and adverts for as much as 16 hours a day. Quote, many local residents have clear and serious objections to the light and noise pollution this development would cause, as well as the potential for increased antisocial behavior and traffic, writes Brown in a new article for The Guardian. Quote, the giant venue will beam bright lights into the surrounding area until 11 p.m. on some days, beginning again at 6 a.m. or 7 a.m., depending on the time of year. One constituent has predicted that it will be like living next to the surface of the sun. Many residents feel that living next to the site will be a nightmare. End quote. Obviously, if anything changes on this, we'll keep you in the loop. Interesting aside, I lived in East London, not far from this very area for quite some time, and I can tell you that the Olympic Park is already very bustling and has some great developments and has some very economical and eco-friendly installations that are there, including bridges and some of the walkways built from recycled materials and a lot of repurposed materials there. So I'm guessing that potentially the sphere that will broadcast videos and adverts for 16 hours a day might not be in keeping with the original plan for the area as it stands. So it may not just be residents that are disapproving, potentially a far more planet-friendly reason for that. Obviously, if anything like that surfaces, we'll be sure to bring you the updates on that. But for now, back to you guys.
Right on. Yeah. Isn't there like different types of restrictions in different areas of London of what you can build? And I remember it was like, but they started relaxing those when they built the Gherkin and they started changing the landscape.
Yeah, I mean, this area, even though it's called quote unquote East London, it's technically Stratford, which is, it is technically London, but it's not London as in central or city of London. So within the city of London confines, I think some of those things are much stricter because a lot of those buildings are listed and the skyline is so iconic that they need to preserve it for the purposes of licensing and that sort of thing for the city. But outside of this area, I mean, this area is pretty flat in view. So there's not a lot of skyscrapers in this section in Newham Council, which is where this actually would be. I think it's genuinely because so many blocks of flats have been put up in those areas that it would be an eyesore. And my football club's stadium is based in that area. They play at the Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park, which it will probably be quite an interesting a distraction for anybody coming to watch football or athletics. So I think it may have been scrapped so it doesn't take away from what's already currently a bustling touristy area.
Yeah, I mean, putting that up would give it that nighttime more of a Blade Runner look with all advertising.
Yeah, or as they said, like the surface of the sun.
Yeah.
So I, for one, am one to agree. If I lived there, I don't think I'd want that either.
Right on. All right, thanks for that. We're going to talk a little about this Maria Schneider versus YouTube content ID case. We discussed this a little while ago, and the back and forth continues. So here's an update on it, and this is from Complete Music Update. And there's an interesting twist in this case. So it's basically the legal battle is over who gets access to the content ID rights management system. So what she's been saying is independent creators like herself are obliged to manually issue takedown requests if their content appears on the YouTube platform, and if YouTube's manual takedown processes, she claims, pretty damn shoddy, end quote. The whole case went on a quite detour since the last time we checked in on this, because Schneider's original co-plaintiff was an anti-piracy company called Pirate Monitor. And it was discovered that was basically a front for film director Gabor Supo, who had tried to secure access to Content ID by uploading his own content to YouTube channels and then reporting those uploads as copyright infringing. So the aim was to prove that Cuspo's content was being infringed at sufficient levels on YouTube that his company deserved access to the rights to the management tools. So basically, those tactics damaged the credibility of Pirate Monitor as a plaintiff, and it had to bail on the case. So Schneider is in on it alone, and she's basically, YouTube is saying that she does have access to Content ID via the music industry business partners who actually licensed her music to user uploaded site. And on that point, the musician's most recent filing said defendants appear to refer to a licensing agreement with Schneider's publisher, but Schneider's agreement with her publisher did not grant the publisher control over her works and did not provide her publisher the right to license those works without her written consent, which was never given, which means YouTube's licensing agreement doesn't cover Schneider's works. So not all her music is covered by the agreement, and what the saying is, even in some of her works were inappropriately part of the Content ID for a period of time, not all works were. So this case is just kind of taking a different turn, but it sounds like she really needs to start talking to her publisher. This is something that's been going on with Twitch. Artists, musicians saying, I am streaming my own music, or on YouTube, I'm streaming my own music, and I'm getting DMCA takedown notices and complaints, but you need to get this whitelisted. And DistroKid has that service like that. TuneCore, I believe so, and there's others. So check with your distribution service. Check if you have a publishing deal. Check with them to make sure that all those rights are cleared. All right, and we talked about Y2Mate shut down in Australia and the U.S., and so we have another stream ripping site that is under attack. And rightly so. All right, so this one is from Torrent Freak. Legal pressures mount on stream ripping site Yout.com. The music industry is convinced that downloading music from public streaming services, YouTube in particular, is the greatest piracy threat to the industry. And that's from the article. And this is slanted a little bit in that area of kind of taking on Yout's stance here. So what they've sued several YouTube download sites, removed stream ripping URLs from search engines, and they've mostly targeted the open source tool YouTube DL as well. And so this is now Yout.com has filed a suit against the RIAA. So in a defensive legal move, the operator Jonathan Nader sued the RIAA, saying Yout is a stream ripper that doesn't store any files on its servers. We've heard that one before. Through the lawsuit, its operator asked a Connecticut district court to declare that the site does not violate the DMCA's anti-circumvention provision, and goes on to say such a judicial determination and declaration is necessary to protect Yout from the defendant's DMCA notices, which are causing Yout injury by, among other things, damaging its goodwill and disrupting its business. The RIAA clearly disagreed and asked the court to dismiss the lawsuit. The request is still pending, and the court has scheduled a hearing in the matter, which is set to take place later in the week. And the outcome of the lawsuit will be important to Yout's future, but it's not the only music industry challenge the site faces. Yes, they have other issues. That's been what is known as the Spanish blockade, is what they're calling it, where the site is blocked in Spain and in Peru. In addition, they are facing possible criminal prosecution in Brazil. So needless to say, Yout's operator is in a tough position with this many legal issues at play. It's an understatement to say that Yout's future is uncertain. And, I'm all for getting it taken down. Let's stop the stream ripping.
This is like saying that the getaway driver isn't part of the gang because they didn't physically rob the bank and they didn't physically make the drop to the boss. Are they actually trying to defend themselves by saying, well, we don't store anything that people rip, we just let them rip it and give them the capability? Oh, that's rich, I think. Yeah, I hope they get them.
That goes back to the Napster defense and LimeWire defense. LimeWire, we don't. It's not on our servers. No. We're just riding the pipeline. Okay. And we're going to end up with this one quick little update that's not necessarily music related, it's social tech, and for any of those with Apple and Twitter. So this one is from Apple Insider. And Twitter activates sign-in with Apple integration. So Twitter on Monday became the latest service to integrate sign-in with Apple support, enabling a streamlined account creation process, enhancing security for end users. Announced in a tweet from Twitter's support team, the new compatibility is available in the Twitter iOS app as Continue with Apple. Support for sign-in with Apple debuts alongside a similar integration for Google account holders and Apple's App Store guidelines. Here's something that was interesting. That's kind of one of the things I took away from this. Is what I want to share is Apple's App Store guidelines require that apps offer a sign-in option with Apple if another third party or social login service like Facebook login or Google sign-in is deployed. So basically, Apple's like, hey, if you're doing it, letting others use that option, then you have to have our option as well. And with that, that is it for the reads. Eli, I'm gonna throw to you, but I can't press the sound bite because we don't have a Spotify spot today. I think it's the first one in over 60 shows that we haven't had a Spotify spot. So sorry to disappoint, but let's check in with Eli.
Well, you know what? I'll tell you what. Let's check in with the weather anyway. Well, since we don't have the Spotify spot, just for today, in our global weather, we see that many listeners find themselves sitting in an English garden waiting for the sun. And with that weather update having been said, don't forget that you can raise your hand to join in our discussion. You can chime in the chat, and don't forget to visit our website. And as we wrap up today, I want to say thank you so much for joining today's Music News at Noon. We do hope that you'll join us here each weekday, Monday through Thursday at 12 p.m. Eastern. You can visit our website to stay up to date on all of our current happenings in the music industry, join our community, access other amazing resources, all this and more at musicindustrycity.com. My name is Eli Window, and on behalf of our UK correspondent, Angela Randall, I just want to say thank you so much for being part of today's broadcast. And I want to ask my co-host, Peter Schwing. Peter, do you have any final thoughts for us today as we wrap our broadcast for today?
Well, if anybody else had some final thoughts, so feel free to join the stage. And Angela, let's throw it back over to across the pond. Angela, is there anything that stuck out for you?
I'm still giggling over that English garden comment. I'm quite literally sitting in an English garden now. Here to some of these crackdowns on piracy. It's nice to see that almost 2 decades on, we've finally gotten on the right side of this and seen that rather than damning the man, it's a good idea that everybody has their content looked after. And if you're doing the right thing, most of these sites are giving you the opportunity to take advantage of the best that they have to offer, and a lot of them are now listening to their users and making the changes they need, albeit in sort of glacial pace, but they're getting there eventually. So good to hear all of that, but sad to hear, of course, about COVID coming between band members and potential attendees and concert goers and the events they'd love to go to. Trust me, that Delta variant is no joke, but if everybody gets vaxxed, then hopefully this will be something in the distant past.
Here, Angela. Hey, everybody, if you can, get vaxxed, stay masked, and let's all see some shows.
Yeah, and just, the other thing, even when it says, like, going to, the bands and everything, there's, like, touring. Some people, if they are doing shows crossing borders and, there is a person that isn't vaccinated and the band wants to keep them, there also might be a policy from the venue. So there's other areas that are of concern and to pay attention to. So it might not necessarily be that they want them out of the band, but they just might need a fill-in member for a particular show, or they just don't take the show together as a band, which we've also seen.
Just like we saw in today's headlines, Peter, where venues, performances, restaurants, gyms in New York City, within the New York City limits, are going to be requiring that patrons be vaccinated to come in. Think about a situation like that with a tour of musicians coming through New York City. If there's a member in the band who isn't vaccinated for any particular reason at all, it doesn't matter why. If they're not vaccinated, they won't be allowed inside a restaurant in New York City. And so right there is a major market where we are seeing just this week it trending towards encouragement to get vaccinated for everyone. And if a tour is coming through New York City, members will need to take a look at those mandates and be concerned. That's what we're going to see that in a lot of markets and across a lot of borders. So I anticipate us seeing a lot of live music news coming out of the Music News at Noon here coming up in the next few months.
All right. Well, hopefully it'll start being more positive news. All right. With that, I don't have really any more final thoughts except be safe, everybody. Let's stay healthy. Let's stay safe, and let's get through this sooner than later. So with that being said, thanks everybody for joining us. Thank you to Eli, Angela, and everybody that has hung out in the audience and everywhere on our live stream, Clubhouse, and everywhere we are. So thanks. Have a great day. We will see you again tomorrow. Have a good one.
Cheerio.
Cheerio, Angela. And hey, everybody, I hope you have an excellent day today. It's great to see you. Kick butt.